Closed captioning is brought to you by Bell.
1-800-454-4700. 1-800-454-4700.
Celebrating 2 decades of achievement. This is CNN.
Tonight we have the exclusive story of a clandestine...
CNN has learned from UN and...
CNN in Time contacted the...
CNN and Touch, the Sunday news magazine that's first to bring you stories that matter. First with provocative award-winning investigative reports. First with in-depth global coverage of the issues and events that affect you and your world.
This is CNN and Time.
First to bring you stories that matter. Sundays 9 Eastern, only on CNN.
I think why Crossfire works is you get 2 opinionated hosts.
We don't pull any punches. He knows why he's a liberal. I know why I'm a conservative.
You get 2 expert opinionated guests.
I want a guest who believes in what he or she is saying.
You get a hot topic, you pour them all into 1/2 hour, and then you just sit back and see what happens. And anything can happen.
Madeline, Press, and Novak. Crossfire, weeknights on CNN.
This is a CNN special report.
The news broke unexpectedly in the Syrian parliament, which was gathered for routine business. Politicians cried as they learned of the death of the man who maintained his grip on power for 3 decades by not tolerating dissent. During those 3 decades, world leaders knocked at his door, one after another, believing that he, Hafez Al-Assad, held the key to peace in the Middle East. Assad engaged those leaders in discussions of legendary length that went on for hours upon hours, but he never revealed whether he was prepared to use that key. In recent months, there was a greater sense of urgency than ever. Israel had a new leader who said he was determined to move forward with Syria. Assad's number 2 man was repeatedly dispatched to negotiate with the Israelis. President Clinton tried to mediate, but Assad was believed to be in failing health. If he did intend to make peace, would he live long enough to deliver? He did not. And now the world's attention shifts to Assad's successor. A vote hours ago in the Syrian parliament points to who that might be. Bashar Assad, an eye doctor by training who has spent the last 6 years studying at the foot of his father. Tonight we'll learn more about Hafez Assad's son. Is he ready to lead, and will he have the necessary authority? We'll have reports from Syria's capital, Damascus, where preparations are underway for a leader's funeral. From Jerusalem, which is preparing for the uncertainty that comes with a new face on the head of an old adversary. From Lebanon, a country dominated by Hafez al-Assad's military presence for so many years. And from Washington, which must now reevaluate how to push forward with Middle East peace. This is a CNN special report on the death of Hafez al-Assad. Now from the CNN...
Welcome to our viewers from around the world.
This hour we bring you a 1-hour special on the life and legacy of Syrian President Hafez al-Assad. For nearly 3 decades, Hafez al-Assad ruled his native Syria with a strong hand, achieving a near-mythic status among his nearly 15 million people. Assad also cast a subtle yet powerful influence throughout the Middle East and the Arab world. One of the region's longest-serving leaders, Assad died Saturday at his home in Damascus after battling heart trouble for years. He was 69 years old. Funeral services are planned for Tuesday. Assad's death raises serious concerns about Syria's stability and the future of the Mideast peace process. For now, the nation remains in mourning. Our coverage this hour begins with CNN's Rilla Amin in Damascus.
The news came at the end of the day. Many took to the streets, trying to reach the president's house. Security was tight. Members of Syria's Republican Guard were out on Damascus streets. This woman says she feels like she has just lost a father, a brother, that she has just been turned into an orphan. The crowd chanted for the late president, called on God to allow him into his heaven. They also voiced their support for his son, Bashar, to succeed his father. The Syrian parliament moved quickly to pave the way for Bashar al-Assad to succeed his father. For example, the minimum age for a Syrian president of 40 years old was lowered to 34 years old, which is Bashar's age. The regional command for the ruling Ba'ath Party also moved swiftly and nominated Bashar al-Assad as a candidate for the presidency. The Syrian parliament will be meeting in 2 weeks to vote on that recommendation. In their hearts, there is grief. On their mind, there is concern. Syrians realize President Assad's death marks an end of an era. Few have doubts. It's the president's son, Bashar, who's going to lead this country into its future. They have their hopes pinned on him. It's only for the better. The late president had been grooming his son for this post for the last 6 years. Bashar is a colonel in the army, but for Syrians, he's better known as the man who has been leading a comprehensive campaign against corruption, which earned him a reputation as an honest, clean man. For many Syrians, Hafez Al-Assad is the only president they have ever known. On Tuesday, they will participate in his funeral and walk into a new era for Syria. Rula Amin, CNN, Damascus.
The death of President Assad adds uncertainty to the already fragile Middle East peace process. Syria, under Assad, has been the main power broker for Lebanon because thousands of Syrian troops occupy much of the country. Our Beirut bureau chief, Brent Sadler, has traveled to Damascus. He joins us now with more. Brent, what have you learned?
Thanks, Jonathan. I just came across the mountain range dividing Lebanon from Syria, traveling from the Lebanese capital, Beirut, to Damascus. I can tell you at the border, Quranic prayers are being read across loudspeakers. Certainly a very somber mood at the Syrian checkpoints along the way into Damascus. In terms of the impact of the passing of Hafez Al-Assad has on the immediate region is indeed deep. Lebanon, as you were saying, has something like 35,000 Syrian troops have been there since 1976. The Syrian hand involved in all aspects of the life there, from the military, the intelligence, and indeed the political structures there. And it was the Lebanese president, Amir Lahoud, who may well have been one of the last people to have spoken to the late Syrian president. They were on the telephone, according to the Lebanese leader, when Hafez Al-Assad suddenly was taken ill at a time when Assad and the Lebanese president were talking about peace, the hopes for peace, getting peace moving, getting the Israeli-Syrian dialogue back on track, and thereby in parallel the Lebanese-Syrian dialogue back on track. So the very last thoughts, according to the Lebanese president, on Hafez al-Assad's mind as he passed away was the possibility of peace with Israel. What happens now under the expected leadership of his son, Dr. Bashar Assad, as he's called here in Damascus. In Lebanon, he's more frequently referred to as Colonel Bashar Assad from his army days. A young man, almost 35. The constitution of Syria changed to fit in with the perspective of Bashar Assad rising to the Syrian leadership. And his credentials are going to be under close scrutiny, both regionally and internationally. Jonathan.
Brent, are the people of Lebanon, perhaps the people you may have seen in Syria, sad? And if they aren't, are they free enough in either country to say truthfully that they don't mourn this leader?
Certainly in Syria, one is seeing expressions of grief on the streets. We saw from Rula Amin's report there. If I can take you back to Lebanon, where I've just come from, then there are mixed reactions. The country there has gone into 7 days of mourning. That was announced by Lebanese Prime Minister Salim Hoss. And the government in Lebanon is known to be obviously pro-Syrian. Certainly President Amir Lahoud has an excellent relationship, had an excellent relationship with the late president, and has a very good, strong relationship, it's widely known, with his son Bashar Assad. Now, Bashar was trained as an eye expert in London. He speaks English. I spoke to Bashar Assad for a couple of hours several months ago when he didn't want to go into too many details about the possible succession once his father passed away, but he said he was working very hard to one day assume the presidency when his father passed on, providing that it was the will of the Syrian people. Now, you've seen constitutional moves here move very quickly. This is happening on a very fast track now. We could have this nomination coming to fruition in a couple of weeks in terms of the new leadership here. But let's look back into Lebanon again. Of course, many people will have mixed views, particularly the Christian community, who felt that they were not getting the kind of political leadership they wanted out of the Lebanese because of Syrian influence over Lebanese politics. And there have been some pretty outspoken comments in one newspaper by the publisher there, really raising focus on the continuing presence of Syrian troops after the Israeli pullout, after 22 years of Israeli occupation in South Lebanon. That pullout happened just 2 weeks ago. So two mega changes, mammoth changes in the mosaic on the ground in the Middle East as a result of not only Hafez Al-Assad's death, but also that Israeli troop withdrawal just a couple of weeks or so ago. Jonathan.
CNN's Brent Sadler on the line from Damascus. Joey?
Also in the region, Jordan's King Abdullah praised the late Syrian leader on Saturday as a great statesman who dedicated his life to serving the Arab cause. The two leaders met for the last time a year ago, as seen in this photograph. King expressed his condolences earlier today during a phone call with Assad's son and possible successor, Bashar. Earlier today, Jordan's cabinet announced 3 days of national mourning. The U.S. Secretary of State Madeleine Albright will lead the U.S. delegation to Tuesday's funeral services for the Syrian president. In the meantime, President Clinton